Hello and welcome to my new video. Today I will make video about the memories and the memories which I create with the Hasselblad on 120 film. I'm rarely shooting with the 120 film, and also I almost never shoot black and white. For some reason I actually have preference for the memory shots and home shots and something which I shoot at home to make it black and white, and especially black and white film like Ilford HP5 have great ability to push it a little bit, and with a tripod, with a calm setting of the Hasselblad on a tripod, with a cable release, with a slow shutter speed, with a fully opened aperture, I can imagine how I can create the long-lasting memories, and also I can imagine how I can create the beautiful home portraitures, but in the same time never lose the touch of the moment itself, and also never lose ability to actually capture moments and memories which I want. This is one of the things which I greatly admire in analog photography and which I don't have at all in a digital one, because most of the time you get stuck with the screen, with the settings, with a lot of additional things. But with the simplification, with the simple approach of shooting black and white, doesn't really care about color, care only about the moment and contrast and the final result of the square, beautiful picture of your memory, it relaxes you a bit and provides you more ability to create the memories not only on your photos, but also create memory inside your mind. So let's go to the darkroom and start developing two rolls of 120 film, which I exposed over the New Year season here in Denmark, in Copenhagen, in my apartment with my family. I will develop two rolls of film, and I will develop them in one go on a one reel. In the Yoba drum you have a separator for the two films, and I will develop two HP5 exposed as ISO 800. When you load this film, you need to keep in mind that you need a full drum. You cannot use rotation method, but I will anyway use 500 milliliters of the solution. And also it's a good practice to keep the spools somewhere in your drawer if you lost one. I will put the ratios for rodinal development from the adox in the description below, because I most of the time forget how to make the proper ratios, so I put the descriptions on the bottle, but anyway it's good to have a reference manual in the description below that I can actually go back and look what I did before. Because rodinal is one-time use solution, I always prepare the new one and always make fresh chemicals, and also I do exactly the same for the fix. Because I rarely shoot black and white, I don't really care if I save a little bit of chemistry, and also think about it, it's quite cheap chemicals, especially from adox. And in comparison to color, it's quite cheap and reliable process, so I always try to keep fresh chemicals. Nevertheless, I almost don't have fix, and because I use a fix for paper and also for black and white, and it's the same chemicals but with a different ratio, I think I consume it the most from the whole kit what I have for a few years for my black and white film. I also thinking about the next step of improvement in the darkroom. I'm thinking to buy more precise volumetric flasks and dosing system and some small chemical improvement for my darkroom. I really miss distillator and the pure clean water, and most of the time I'm using clean water only for last add a flow or stabilizer to basically rinse off everything as a hard water from the previous chemical or development steps, and to keep the last step as a fresh water with a surfactant, which prevents some drying problems with the film at home. For color I'm using multi-timer, and today I will show a little bit different timer, but just in case for ISO 400 I'm using 6 minutes, and for ISO 800 I'm using 8 minutes of development, around 10 to 15 seconds to stop, 1 minute for wash, and 4 minutes in fixer, and few minutes in the last batch of the chemicals, which remove all the residues, but also I will show today small app which I bought especially for this development. It's called Massive Dev, and it's actually all the timers which you need for black and white development, different dilutions and different mixtures of the chemicals. And what is also good about this app, it has corrections for the temperature, because I don't really have a temperature control around 20 degrees. So sometimes you need a little bit longer development time and a little bit longer fixer time. Today I will also try not constant rotation for the chemicals, because as far as I understand it creates a little bit better crystals and a little bit better highlights on the edges, and in general black and white doesn't really require constant rotation for development of the crystals. So I'm using standard procedure of the inversion, but I made inversion with my Yoba drum and just put it with the 2 rotations in one direction and 2 rotations backwards, and wait every 30 seconds to make a stop and tap it on a table to remove the bubbles and just wait a little bit more for final developments. And because it's one-time use chemicals, after the use I just directly dump it in my recycle. And from there we can move to the next step of the stop bath. It's usually not really required, but because I have a stop, I quite likely to use it for a simple stop of the developments for 15 seconds. And also you can just use water, it's not really required, but it's a little bit more precise in terms of time for development, especially if it's hot in your room and you don't really have a 18 or 20 degrees in your apartment. I like any approach which give you more consistency with your material and with your shots, and also with your developments and with your perception of the process itself. The next step is a fixer. I also pour the full 500 ml of the fixer inside the drum, and I will follow the procedure from the app and do more or less the same as for development, and just wait required for my temperature time to fix my film completely. The last step is a final rinse with the Adaflow. It's also not crazy required, but I prefer to have it because I don't really like to clean up and make cleaning on a black and white film. Fresh film anyway give you more advantage and easier to scan, and you remove most of the problems in future with your film if you do everything right from the chemical point of view. And when the fixing process is finished, I also don't really put it back, and I prefer to use the fresh chemicals all the time and never forget to make a new one, because one time I actually ruined my film with the old Rodinol solution because I forget that it's a one-time use developer. So I finally let my film cook in a final solution for a few minutes, and from there I actually have a final result of my film and I just want to see how it looks like. So it's proper time to actually open the drum and enjoy the final result of your work, and if it's successful it gives you additional joy if you just look on your negative while it's drying on your hanger. So let's look together on my scans and enjoy results of my process. Most of the shots I made with a fully open aperture on f2.8 on my 80mm lens on Hasselblad, and also I used some crazy low shutter speeds to make a proper exposure with the completely dark conditions of my apartment close to the new year, because you already don't really have ambient lights and you have only lights in the room, and also because I'm not a big fan of the flash in apartments and also flash in the setting of the calm evening. I just prefer to use a tripod and make long exposures with the cable release, so 1/8 of the second, 1/4 of the second. And sometimes f2.8 on the Hasselblad is just too narrow and you cannot find really a good focus. As always, I hope you really like my work and my videos, and if you want to support my channel, you can always do it in the links in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next videos. Bye.